Welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast, where business leaders come to share their advice and journeys to success with existing and emerging leaders of America. Join us as we delve into the minds of these accomplished individuals, uncovering the strategies and insights that have propelled them to the top. Whether you're an established leader or an emerging force in the business world, this podcast is your go-to source for the knowledge and inspiration needed to navigate the dynamic landscape of American business. Now, here's your host, Dylan Bloyd.
Welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast. Today we have the honor of hosting a distinguished guest, Dean Peter Rodriguez. With over 25 years of experience in academia, Dean Rodriguez is a passionate and dedicated leader, educator, and scholar in the field of business and economics. Currently serving as the Dean of the Jones School of Business at Rice University for the past 7 years, he oversees the strategic direction, academic excellence, and operational effectiveness of one of the nation's top business schools. Before joining Rice University, Dean Rodriguez held the role of Senior Associate Dean and Chief Diversity Officer at the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia. Join us as we explore his insights on leadership, diversity, and the evolving landscape of business education. Thank you for joining the show, Dean Rodriguez.
Dylan, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you would please extend a little bit more on your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So, I'm an economics professor. I didn't go to college thinking economics first. I think I was thinking pre-med, but I'd never really taken a lot of courses. And so going through my curriculum, I really found that I liked economics. I didn't know what it was, but I really liked the approach. It was a bit of science, a bit of history, a bit of math, all welded together with business. And for me, that ability to speak to many different sort of issues in parts of the world was very exciting. So I switched. Being a professor is an odd leap too. In my senior year, I got to do a research project. I didn't really know what that was like, but I was encouraged to do that. And I liked it. And that's kind of where the story gets started. I did spend some time in banking, which I also liked as well. That was sort of the business side of my career, which I did really early, out of school. And that was wonderful. I could have stayed with that, but in many ways, I did the middle thing, is that I'm here in an academic institution working towards, advancing a business school. So with a foot in the business world and a foot in the academic world, in a sense, that's sort of where I am. I was fortunate. My dad was a chemist, and so he really encouraged me academically. He taught at a college for a long time too, and so I always felt like this was a friendly place to be. And so out of what is Texas A&M for undergrad, I went to Princeton for graduate school. I spent most of my career at the University of Virginia, 13 years, as a professor in the Darden School, and later as a dean of all the MBA programs. And I really loved it. It was terrific. And in 2016, I got the opportunity to come to Rice, never thinking I would leave. I thought, that's an opportunity I'll leave for. And I've been here this is my 8th year. Really happy to be here.
Wow. Oh, what a great story. Was it difficult to make that transition from Virginia to Rice? I mean, after being there 13 years, I'm sure it was a difficult decision.
It was a difficult decision. I told my wife and family and most others that we'd kind of settled in. My kids largely grew up there. And in terms of, being at an academic institution, it's very hard to beat the University of Virginia in that environment. But what attracted me to Rice was, of course, a great leadership opportunity, but the strategic opportunities for a business school in such a large city, 4th largest, I think soon to be the 3rd largest city in the US, in a booming state, and at a university with a great reputation for academics. Those are great strategic foundations. And I thought I could really make a difference, have an impact, do something gratifying there. And it was the right choice. So a big move, but a bigger opportunity.
Right. Well, that is incredible. So I did want to start circling back to your time at Virginia. So as the Chief Diversity Officer, how did you approach promoting diversity and inclusion within the business school?
Yeah, so I was the Senior Associate Dean for degree programs, and I managed technology. I did a lot of things. I had the most direct reports at the business school. And we had a separate CDO, Chief Diversity Officer, a good friend of mine named Martin Davidson. He'd literally written a book. I say he wrote the book on diversity. It was, what was the name of his book? The End of Diversity as We Know It, actually. Wow. It's called Leveraging Difference. And his insight was really thinking about how to leverage differences in people's capabilities to create sustainable competitive advantages in firms. it was so successful that he went on sabbatical and took some of his lessons to Wall Street and other places.
Wow.
And we had this moment where we wouldn't have had a separate office. And the dean at the time said, Peter, maybe you should assume this title as well, incorporate it into your existing work and talk about it with all your direct reports. And so that's what I did for a few years. It wasn't my academic background like his, but we tried to do a couple of things that extended, I think, his legacy and kind of helped us address some longstanding issues. And you could think of it this way. One of them was, how do we create real connection and belonging amongst everyone here at the university and at the school? And part of that was, taking a hard look at what we do and how we do it and asking, are we really being inclusive? Do we really reflect the world as it is in the way that we teach, in the way that we live and do work? And so, for example, a simple one would be, we did a lot of case studies. You do a lot of study of existing businesses, and you have a lot of these examinations of business leaders. And we asked, how many of them are men? How many of them are women? Are we really presenting women as their fair proportion in the population, and especially in business leadership? And at first, certainly we didn't. I think only about 10% of our cases had a woman as a protagonist or in a main role. And we worked to make that larger and to sort of look at some of the ways that women were leading and changing business at the time, and that was useful. We wanted to learn from our students. What's your experience here? And little things tended to matter. One of the things you worry about when you're trying to recruit really top students is, do people look at the school and think, this is a place I want to go? Is it inviting for me? And for a lot of people at the time, it would be, I'll give you an example. We had students in New York or in Boston and in major cities in the North and Northeast who thought, I don't know if I would fit in Virginia. Maybe that's not for me. What's it going to be like? Feels like a part of the South that might be rural. Is that just, am I going to be, a fish out of water? So we had that. We also had lots of international students where a great deal of talent was, curious. They would similarly be familiar with New York, Chicago, LA, maybe, right. But Virginia is like a question mark for them. Like, I don't know, what is that?
Yeah.
What happens there? And then, of course, we had people across different racial and ethnic backgrounds, too, who might think, I don't know, I see the image, I see the school and the grads. Is it for me? So we worked really hard on making sure that everybody could come and be we would say their authentic self. Who you are is the right person for us. We're going to make you comfortable, and we're going to try to bring together a group of people who have different backgrounds, different ways of looking at the world and thinking. And this was the holdover from my colleague, was leverage the difference. How do you use what's different about people to get different insights on the business, how it operates? There's sort of this instrumental view of being able to take those latent advantages and turn them into good thinking. So we really worked on that piece a lot. And then I think the third thing we did was, sort of help people and students as it was really early. This is over a decade ago in this moment, but really think about the world. And so there are a lot of students who had questions like, why do we have, polarization or racial division or ethnic tensions, and what do we do about that? In the main, that's typically not the direct subject of a business school's curriculum, but it is part of people's lives sometimes. And so they wanted an avenue to think about and talk about that. And as a good academic institution, you want to be able to convene a good conversation about that, talk about it when necessary. And so we did a series of conversations in the evening, it's kind of the thing you do at a school. Bring in experts, have some pizza, and talk about the civil rights legislation in the 60s, what it did, what it changed, what is still changing, et cetera. And that's sort of how we worked on making the place a place of greater belonging. And I would say it carries over a little bit to today. At Rice, our tagline is "You belong here." And it really is trying to convey that same message, that if you're motivated, talented, and ready, you absolutely belong here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's extremely important, especially some people that I've spoken with, how important diversity is when they're selecting which school to go to, where to teach. I mean, because even when you're teaching it at the university as well, that teaches those students to transition that to the place of work, especially when they're moving into a leadership position, a management position. So on that.
I'd follow on and say, one of the biggest things, so we care about it as a value, but it's also true that every leader, every manager usually has to work with people from really different backgrounds, and you need to be ready to think about that. Some people grow up in environments where that's more common or more natural, but most of us don't. Most of
Right.
us grow up and we need to be able to think about how different people look at the world and how to respect them and work with them well.
Right. When you're transitioning from the senior associate dean at Darden School of Business to becoming the dean at Jones School of Business, what aspects of your leadership approach evolved?
Yeah, so I think my first efforts here were sort of right out of a leadership 101 playbook. You want to come in, have a listening tour, take everybody's counsel, be deliberative in kind of a 90-day plan and starting to set some goals and trying to do that by getting people together and creating some consensus. What do we really want? How do we move forward? What can we agree on? And funnily enough, I think right off the bat, it was clear I was moving too slowly.
Mm.
And I think for the organization, the view was, look, we hired you to lead and we appreciate you coming to us, but we want you to take some action, show us what you want, give us your vision. And in part, that's always a difficult question, when you first go to a job interview or for a leadership role, they'll say, well, what's your vision? And you think, well, I'm just learning about the organization. I don't really have a well-formed vision. But there's another truth, which, is, when in command.
Mm.
And so I think the view was, you're ready, use your instincts, take a few steps early, and, make sure you don't close yourself off to change. And so one of the things that changed when I got here was I began to take more decisive leadership action earlier. And because there were some, I'd call them low-hanging fruit or obvious things we needed to work on. And so
Right.
we didn't want to waste any time. I think transition periods often mean, stagnation for organizations. If you're looking for a new leader for a year, in a sense, you lose a lot of that momentum. And rightly, the leaders and other members of that organization think, let's make up for that time and at least get back on track with respect to the most obvious choices. And that's what I worked on. I think the other one was communicating much more often and much more effectively, trying to do that more. I'd gotten a taste of that, but I think that, becoming the dean meant needing to make sure everybody knew what you were thinking and planning and how you saw things. Your tone mattered, your direction mattered, and that was something to get used to. I usually tell people that I was surprised at how much people listened to what I said. And you notice, you're like, oh, yeah, I'll give you the analogy. So I remember it's like if you're used to, as a professor, you're sort of like someone in a play on a stage, right? And so
Yes.
you don't have a mic, you are projecting and you're trying to reach people in the back of the room. And so you're a little bit larger and more animated. And that's perfectly suitable to the moment. As a dean, when you're in a bigger role or when you're speaking to a larger audience, it's more like being on the big screen in a movie theater.
Mm.
There's a close-up on your face. Your head is 8 feet wide, right? And so
Right.
little movements actually get the point across, and you want to make sure that you're communicating effectively, because I think people take your view more seriously, and there's a real plus to that, and the downside is you don't want to be incautious in what you say
Mm-hmm.
or speak off the cuff. And so just thinking about it more and thinking about a communication strategy and keeping everybody abreast of what we were doing was vital, and I had to get better at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that analogy. It makes a lot more sense for me when I was in my management career, going from one position, where I'm just starting out as a leader, as a supervisor, and then moving on to another place after 3 to 4 years. I had that experience built up, so my confidence was much higher moving into a position. So I'm sure it's similar to your transition, that you had the 13 years at Virginia and then moving on to another university. You had that confidence behind you, right? And you knew a lot of the things that you had to change, those, low-hanging fruit, like you mentioned. It made it a little bit easier, I'm sure, to transition.
100%, absolutely right.
Right. Can you share some of the key strategic initiatives or priorities that you've implemented during your time to enhance the school's academic excellence and operational effectiveness? I know we've talked a little bit about, what it was like when you're working with the people that work for you and things like that, but can you speak a little bit more on the school and those areas?
Yeah, there were a few things that we worked on that have been large structural, I think, key changes. One of the most basic ones that can be hard to appreciate was just we needed to increase in scale. We needed to be larger. And of course, the question is, well, why would you be larger? Larger goes along with some things that are risky. So if you're less selective in students, or if you add students into classes, but the classes aren't any better, you kind of dilute the quality. And I think that fear of diluting quality or losing your real aim at being, exquisitely good at what you do is a risk. But scale has other advantages we really needed. Without sufficient scale, you can't have as many professors, and the professors are the real structural foundation of the organization. You need more professors to produce good research. They work well in teams, they leverage each other, but importantly too, it increases the variety of the courses in your curriculum. It enables you to have more depth. There's if you're a restaurant and you only serve 2 entrees, they might be great, but that's not really a full menu, and it's not going to be sufficient to bring enough people in. And there are enough challenges in business that you need this depth in certain disciplines. I'll give you one example. We needed more of just about everything, more in the traditional fields like finance, accounting, marketing, strategy, leadership, and organizational behavior. But we didn't have our own operations management group. This, much more quantitative, technical field, something that many people think of as part of operations research and engineering, but operations management in the business school. We needed real dedicated professors there to have a more robust curriculum than we could really deliver without them. So we needed scale for that. Then in every subdiscipline, when you add high quality professors, you add the ability to go into greater depth and give greater variety, and that improves the quality of your curriculum. And that's how you develop this sort of virtuous cycle, right? You get higher quality professors, a broader portfolio of courses, better courses offered in a more convenient time. And then that's more attractive to good students. More good students come in, and you have this sort of eagle's flock, opportunity where good people want to be at the same place to learn from each other, seize the opportunities. And so scale was an important one. So that's the objective. How you get scale is you have to start offering more programming, and you have to raise revenue. And we started growing our MBA programs. One of the first big ways we did that was actually through an online MBA program, which was a big change. That was the first online degree at the university. And of course, certainly the first online degree for the business school. That meant delivering a product in a different way, or a program in a different way than we'd ever done before, and taking some reputational risk, because people, particularly pre-COVID, looked at online and thought, well, maybe it's not going to be high quality, or maybe you're just going to do something without much effort, or maybe it's a money grab, and you're doing it to raise revenue, but you're not really pouring your best into it. We took steps to make sure that we poured maximum quality into it. It's been a big success. It's helped us with our scale, but we've also tried to adapt in other ways. This past year, we launched a hybrid MBA program, which is a combination of face-to-face programming and online live course delivery, which has been great. And in 2021, we had another large strategic, but also scale enhancing program, which was we started offering undergraduate business majors. We had never done that before. We were a graduate only school. I shouldn't say that. Graduate only in the large sense. We had an undergraduate business minor that was really popular, but offering the major meant getting much more scale and reaching a new audience, and a terrific audience at that. So those are some of the biggest things. We've done other things. I think those sort of stand at the top for their scale enhancement. And that's meant we have grown our faculty by about 40%. We have a much richer, deeper set of courses. We've been able to lean into some of our big strengths like entrepreneurship and leadership in the energy transition. And, I think we're poised to do a lot more. And we're going to start by building a larger building to house all the growth we have.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, since implementing all those programs, have you seen a pretty significant increase in students?
We have. We've about doubled the number of students in our degree program since 2016. And I think we'll get larger still, particularly in the undergraduate space. There's still natural growth ahead because it's a young program. And, I think there are a lot of opportunities ahead. We don't have all that many specialty master's programs, but that's something that I find highly attractive. These would be programs like a 1-year Master's of Finance. We do have a 1-year Master's of Accounting, which is an excellent program, but we could expand in other fields. Business analytics is another field that's growing and changing rapidly. And of course, everybody's trying to figure out and do a great job at providing more education in AI and the way that it impacts the way we do everything, but in particular, the way it impacts the organizations we teach people to lead and launch.
Do you have your hand a little bit in selecting professors, or is that more the HR department, or do you get to be involved in that?
Yeah, I am involved in that. The way we typically run that is the professors in that area will run a search and they'll interview candidates. It's a very time-consuming process,
Right.
and we bring them all in, and I have input on all of those. It's critical. You know, we want to be a part of their development to make sure that they're doing well, and we want to make sure that they're part of our students' development. It has to be a good fit, and so we've grown a little bit every year. I would say by now, when you think about turnover and who we've added, I've had a hand in hiring over half the professors here, and that's not that long, but that's right.
Right. Yeah. Right. Oh, thank you for that. So since you just mentioned AI, I did want to actually touch on that a little bit. So with the rapid advancement in technology, what is your vision for the future of business schools? Do you see drastic changes on the horizon?
You know, it's always difficult to see clearly. I have my expectations, and I'm sure I'll be wrong about some, but there are some trends that I think will be accelerated or changed because of AI and the other ways that technology is influencing business. One of the things we see, and you know, obviously AI can replace a lot of decision making, and it will become more important and changing the nature of what jobs are produced and available.
Right.
But business schools and other educational experiences are becoming a little bit more personal and customizable. And I see that now. If you think back not too long ago, but we'll just say, you know, turn of the century, it's certainly the case that you would have thought about a fairly rigid degree program. You come in, there are these courses you take, everybody takes the same courses. There are some electives, but the pathway is fairly narrow and there are only a few branches. More and more, we've gone to programs that offer lots of branches, lots of customization. You still definitely need that core foundation in the critical thinking skills and the discipline specific skills that make you capable and ready, and even ready to learn yourself. But we have more capacity than ever to customize the learning experiences. And I think that's the area I see a lot of competition. There's also personalization in another sense, which is thinking less about the disciplines. So learning about finance, learning about accounting, learning about leadership, and more learning about yourself and thinking about your own personal development as an individual. So for example, we do this a lot, maybe as much or more than any business school, and others do too, is we offer a lot of personal coaching. Where a student, as part of their curriculum, is going to come in, set individual goals, do a lot of self-reflection, get some professional coaching and guidance in how they need to learn and grow as a leader. And that I see as more likely in part because AI is a very good substitute for some other forms of tutoring. AI can do a good job of tutoring you in some fields, and it will probably do a better job. And that means more time in a degree program or experience will probably be allotted to those things that are more about one-on-one consultation and thinking about yourself. And that I see as a space where human guidance and coaching is more likely to endure than some of the other things we do now.
Right. Yeah, it is very interesting to see how the changes are occurring. But I mean, there's still going to be interactive learning in classes, right? Even with the AI being able to streamline a lot of those decision making. As far as the interactive learning in your classes to enhance students, you know, analytical and problem solving skills, like do you encourage that a lot in your teachings?
Absolutely. You know, that's essential. And I think you make a great point. I don't think they'll want even more, I should say, of sort of the in-person interaction as they can get. You know, the highly interactive, engaging learning experiences make a big difference in developing you as a leader, a communicator, someone who can think on their feet and think carefully, incorporate the thinking of others. All of those really require being in each other's presence in real time. You can do that virtually, but it's even better face to face. It's often more engaging. I think people are more in the moment, sitting across from one another. And that I think is invaluable in developing an individual. I think we'll see a lot more of that. I encourage it the way you do it. There are lots of ways to do it, but you need to give people real problems to think about and solve that are multifaceted, that don't have scripted answers. You're not solving for a number, you're not solving for one particular right answer. And you get people to integrate many things at once, not just thinking, but talking about their thinking, trying to persuade other people, and having someone like me or other professors push them and use all of our experiences and knowledge to try to make sure they're developing and on the right path. I think that's really exciting. Other things that we do are, and there are many of these as well, but we do a lot of field experiences where students work with companies in the process of making important decisions or changes, particularly small businesses. And in fact, we do that with startup companies outside of the United States. So every student here completes a global field experience with a startup company outside of the US.
Wow.
That's valuable because it's typically a foreign, if you will, problem set to them. The context is different. The resources are scarce. The entrepreneurs are in a formative stage. They don't have a lot of established business practices. And so, I think it's a great test of one's ability to think about something that is a lot messier than they normally think about. And to do so, usually talking across cultures or political and economic environments. We really get a lot out of that. But those are an essential part of everybody's learning journey. And I think students highly value them and will value them even more when generative AI does some of the other things better.
That's an incredible opportunity. I know that for me and anybody who didn't have that opportunity in business school to get to go and really be hands-on in the decision-making process, I mean, that is huge because when you do transition, it's difficult, especially initially, and everybody's looking to you to make this decision. To be able to already have that experience, you can kind of transition a little bit better. Obviously, every situation is different, of course, but that is really great. Kind of back to the AI part of it. I'm from a leadership and management standpoint, I'm excited about it because I know that how much time in the office is spent, running numbers or emailing and things like that. The fact that AI can eventually start assisting in those areas in certain businesses. I mean, of course, you got to know what's going on, but for the most part, that lets you be on the floor a whole lot more. I think that AI is going to really assist in areas like that if implemented.
I think so too. It's hard to predict. We see it. I'll give the characterization I would give is that we started with no, 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 and quickly switched to yes, yes, yes. And the no, no, no was as soon as you saw the capability of generative AI, you thought, well, that's going to undermine teaching and learning. How are we going to tell what's authentically as students? Will they become dependent on it to make too many decisions? Will they substitute their own thinking for whatever is the output? And so there's and will they cheat? Will they do things that we can't, that undermine our ability to assess their actual performance and readiness? But like a lot of technologies, you soon realize this is powerful. It's an incredible opportunity. We have to own it, lean into it, figure out how to use it well, learn from it. And that's a process that's really exciting. It will be disruptive. And we're excited to see where it goes next. It's happening all around us in real time, but I'm old enough to remember the birth of the internet, and I can tell you it was exciting, and the changes were unpredictable and extraordinarily transformative at the same time. I think nothing less is going to be true again for generative AI. It will be absolutely transformative, and I would predict in 2 years or less, we'll see some major business successes born out of whole cloth, and the cloth being generative AI and new forms of doing things.
Right. How are you guys at Rice combating that a little bit? Because I know I use ChatGPT for a lot of things, help me, get prepared for certain conversations, things like that. I even showed it to my sister who is a teacher, and she put together a discussion on a certain topic and just typed it in and boom, pops it out for you. So how do you combat that at the university with students who are to write papers and things like that. Is there a similar to what it was before where it was like to see if you're plagiarizing, those is
Yep.
there something similar for that for AI?
There is, you can obviously run checks with AI itself, and
Okay.
it's pretty good, but it also tends to beat itself in different ways, or you can find ways to mask it. I think the straightforward way we have done it, we do have a policy for AI use. In short form, it would be you must always disclose when you use it.
Okay.
That's the honor code issue. So um, it's not it's not wrong to use it to help in certain writing assignments,
Hmm.
but you must disclose that. So anytime you use it, you have to tell us what you did and tell us the prompt you used. In certain classes, you will be shown how and when to use it, and it will be
Okay.
part of what you do. And in other classes, you can use it to assist yourself in learning or writing in certain instances, but for an examination or for a paper, we want to know what was you and what was not you. And that doesn't mean it's wrong to leverage it to help you get started in a writing project. But ultimately, we want to know what is your thinking. And so it's one thing to say, this is helping with this email that is difficult to write, and the
Yes.
email is not a great part of class. If it's, what is your analysis of what Tesla should do in the next quarter? I want to know that it was your discernment, your thinking
Yes.
that came about. And so there are ways you can do that. You can go all the way back old school and say, we're going to do this in class and we're going to write it down on pencil and
Nice.
paper
Yeah.
for some things. But for the most part, it's disclose when you use it. It's not wrong to use, but there are certain times when we'll want you to be, when we want the assignment or the work to be yours alone.
Mhm.
And that's exciting. In others, I think things that everybody tends to know now, it's a great opportunity to, as we say now, the new coding language is English. And so a lot of people can do things they couldn't have done before. Quantitative courses, it can help you with analyses and do things much faster. So we have some finance courses where there is explicit and everyday use of AI and generative AI in the course. And you're being taught how to do it and do it well. And going forward, we're going to have to teach people to be better at prompt engineering for business purposes. And so we're working fast to incorporate that in our courses too.
That's great. Yeah, just really piqued my interest when, just being that I know it would have been extremely helpful in college and probably would have made sleepless nights, trying to write papers so much quicker, but at the same time, like you said, it's got to be still the student who is putting it together and
And I'll say it's both sides. So there's
right.
another way. So, not only do students want to use it, but faculty want to use it too. So it's actually a
100%.
pretty good grader.
Yes.
And you could feed it your grading rubric and say, read Peter's paper and tell me, did he, adhere to these, did he answer these questions thoroughly? What are the weaknesses? What,
Mhm.
based on a 10-point scale, where
Yeah.
this is perfect, what is his score? There are a lot of good opportunities, and I think, we'll have to be thoughtful as we approach it. There'll be a lot of learning, but it's here to stay, and it's going to make a big change in everything we do, I think.
Right. Yeah, from that standpoint, I think it's great because it helps you guys as professors and professionals of the universities. That helps streamline your processes and be able to focus on other things that you guys can probably not get to if you're sitting there having to grade that long. So that is a good point.
Yeah, done properly, and if it's
Hmm.
not substituting, for the thing you should get from your professor, which is
Right.
attention and care, then
Hmm.
you're right. It's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. How can people engage with you? And for students interested in pursuing an education at the Jones School of Business, what resources are available to help them make informed decisions about their academic and career paths?
We have a very extensive website. All of our resources are typically found there. I'm all over social media, so I'm easy to find on Instagram and Twitter. Usually, my handle is usually Prof. P-Rod. My
Okay.
students always call me P-Rod,
Hmm.
and so I'm easy to find there and connect with. I think, the more you think about investing in yourself and getting a little bit better and readier for the opportunities you want, the more you realize education is essential, and there are lots of opportunities. We always hope that we can be a part of it. And like a lot of business schools, we think we can engage people in large and small ways. Some of them are through our online courses, some of which are free or some of which are easy to take. Non-credit courses, obviously a lot of degree programs, and we can reach people anywhere.
Hmm.
And that's one of the beauties of the modern age is you can take advantage of learning opportunities at almost any university, and we always hope that people think about what we can do and do well and do together. So that's what I would encourage them to do. Never stop learning. It's all the cliched statements you hear from educators, I believe in. If you just get a little bit better every day
Yeah.
and work a little bit every day, that's the real test. There aren't giant leaps or magic pills, but with a little will and discipline, in a year, everybody makes a huge leap.
Yeah. Very, very good point. So I do have one more question before we go.
Sure.
What advice would you give to students aspiring to pursue careers in business and entrepreneurship, and how can they best prepare for the evolving landscape of the business world?
So I think a few things are important. Be patient and be opportunistic are two things that you wouldn't think often go together. But the be patient advice is, don't worry about getting there super fast. I think if you try to solve the problem overnight, you'll realize you're not really getting closer to solving the problem. There aren't really magic beans or anything else. And so be patient and do things that are making you a little bit better. It can be a small experience in leadership. It can be large. It can be with a firm no one has ever heard of. It can be with a giant, but get a little bit of learning experience, take the opportunity that is there. And that's the be opportunistic piece. When you see an opportunity, again, large or small, to do something that you find interesting, to do something that gives you a little more responsibility, think hard about taking it, because you learn in those instances. And it's just the nature of things. Challenge and learning go together. And so if you're not getting a little bit bigger challenge, you're not learning and you're not getting closer to the ultimate goal. And part of that along the way will be going back to business school or getting more business education and training. And I think the way to do that is two ways. One, we've already mentioned, which is take advantage of the incredible wealth of resources that are out there. It can feel overwhelming, but again, just start somewhere and you'll learn, and you'll end up down a few rabbit holes maybe, but you'll also start to form your own opinion and thoughts about what you want to do. Maybe get some ideas and aspirations. And then the last thing is always, if you can talk to somebody a little bit ahead of you, maybe somebody who's done things you're interested in, they've gone to a school or a business school, engage them in a conversation, ask them for a little bit of time. You'd be surprised. I think almost everybody, if you ask, will give you a few minutes, and a lot of those people will give you much more, and you'll learn. You'll get a sense of what they got, what lessons they learned, and if it's right for you. And I think most people let time slip by, and they think about things too late. It's never too late, but they wish they would have started asking questions and learning earlier. And so that's my big advice. Be patient, be opportunistic, and talk to people all the time, and you'll be ready, and you'll make good choices, and you'll find that there's nothing that's unavailable to you, and the future can be really, really bright. And if you don't know that, or if people don't know that, they should know that, because it's available to them.